Well, Ross is not with him this weekend. Micah Greenbaum is. And their winning ways are still continuing at 8-1. Against Daryl Ayers, Russell Lee, and Bobby Fortanely, the team that is in first place through 9 rounds this weekend. Both these teams are 8-1, and we are underway as Marshall has a windswept teeth into an overgrown tomb for our Birds of Paradise, and for Ayers, an Amulet Titan Master. He has a Once Upon a Time.
Phoenix of Ash currently 37 cents.
Yeah, good luck affording that, bud.
So this is another matchup which, structurally should be solid for Marshall. The Amulet Titan deck does not interact with creatures very easily, and so Marshall should have an uncontested path to the combo. Is it going to be fast enough is a question.
Well, Ayers will have a Sakura Tribe Scout. That's one of his faster starts in a matchup like this. So we are going to head back over to Chris Marshall now, who does have acceleration via that Birds of Paradise. And we'll see what his second turn will yield.
If Marshall has a Walking Ballista, we might just see him take down the Tribe Scout.
Yep. He is going to take down the Tribe Scout right now. There's Plains. The follow-up is a Giver of Runes, and we will head back over to Daryl. So slowing down Daryl's development and acceleration is Chris Marshall. There's a Tribe Scout. You see our other matchups here in Pioneer. Micah Greenbaum is playing the very popular Dimir Inverter deck from last weekend against Russell Lee playing Mono Black Aggro. And then Jake Mondello switching from Mono Red Aggro last weekend, a Team of Reclamation this weekend against Bobby Fortanely, who is still playing Mono Red Aggro. We're heading back over to Marshall now after Ayers completes his turn with a Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle, entering the battlefield tapped.
He didn't want to play a Simic Growth Chamber there, I think, for two reasons. One is pretty risky to expose that land to something, even if you don't know exactly what Marshall could have. The other is, if you happen to draw a copy of Amulet of Vigor, it's way more explosive to have a 2-mana land back in your hand than a Valakut.
Ranger Captain of Eos is going to search up a Noble Hierarch in this situation. It is worth noting that Chris Marshall is playing Walking Ballista in combination with Heliod. We all know that combo, but only one Walking Ballista in the main, and it's currently in the graveyard. There is the ability to get it back from the graveyard via Eternal Witness, but Marshall was playing multiple copies of Walking Ballista last weekend, did not find them to be particularly good in multiples, so has cut down to just one, as we're seeing a Once Upon a Time here from Daryl. Azusa among the cards that Daryl is looking at. He will select an Azusa, Lost but Seeking. That will go to his hand, not the graveyard. There we are. Once Upon a Time, not particularly good if it sent the card to the graveyard. But more importantly, looks like Ayers may not have a land to play. That would be interesting, though we do think he's holding a Simic Growth Chamber in some capacity. There we go. There's that Growth Chamber that we expected to see. Going to pick up a copy of Breeding Pool. Worth noting, however, that this is not the most explosive start for Amulet Titan. This deck is capable of much more. And Ayers is not off the ground running just yet as we head back over to Chris Marshall. There is that Noble Hierarch. Here comes Ranger Captain of Eos for 4. 3 plus the Exalted trigger, and Marshall will pass the turn back. So neither player with a terribly explosive draw just yet. Sakura Tribe Scout looks like it's going to go active.
Knight Captain of Eos is for Noble Hierarch is so slow, particularly in a matchup that is this fast, that I have to assume that Marshall has Collected Company or some other big 4-mana payout.
Here's Azusa Lost but Seeking. A second Valakut, along with that Breeding Pool that we saw earlier. And now there's your third land in Castle Garenbrig. Now we're going to head back over to Marshall now. So again, neither player really doing anything broken at this stage of the game. Ayers has not gotten Primeval Titan or Valakut firing off just yet. And for Chris Marshall, we're not seeing any aspects of the combo just yet. No Heliod Sun Crown in combination with either Spike Feeder or Walking Ballista.
You have to imagine at this point that Ayers is set up for next turn.
That's what it's got to be like. Otherwise, he's not really doing much at all. As Verdant Catacombs will be sacrificed here by Chris Marshall. He'll fall down a little bit lower, get himself a basic forest. So down to 16 he will go. And now here is Collected Company, finally. So deep breath here from Marshall. There is a winning combination of cards here. Heliod and Spike Feeder will certainly do it. There is Heliod. I don't think there's a Spike Feeder in there, though. I think he would have dropped that down by now. That'd be the 1-2 that he's looking for to gain infinite life. So he's going to have to go towards Ranger Captain of Eos. There will be a trigger. And we're going to go searching. The Viscera Seer will be searched for and deployed. Now here comes the Ranger Captain of Eos. So, on the upkeep, we're going to see Marshall sacrifice Ranger Captain of Eos.
Try to take Ayers off of Summoner's Pact at the least. And it's not like that 3/3 is really worth very much. Or maybe not.
Yep, now he'll do it. So Ayers will draw.
Really mopey draw here from Ayers. Slow, and also not very powerful either. It's not like he's really, even if he has Primeval Titan here, how much is that really worth?
At this stage of things, it doesn't appear to be very much. There's no Valakut on the battlefield. Excuse me, there's no
Dryad, so there's no way to leverage the Valakuts.
Yep.
A Primeval Titan, there's no amulet to do any sort of haste shenanigans. And so Marshall might go back to his turn just fine. And if you're in Ayers spot, you know, you already kind of dodged it once. You can't be that confident if you get another if Marshall gets another turn here that you're going to survive.
Well, he does have Primeval Titan. I think he's just trying to figure out how he wants to tap for it. And he does have the ability in a roundabout way to give Primeval Titan haste here if he wants to. He can get Handwear Battlements and a bounce land of some type. He can get creative with this. So
yeah, it involves Handwear Battlements plus a bounce land. The bounce land picking up the battlements and then using your land draw for the turn or the Tribe Scout to put the Handwear Battlements onto the battlefield untapped. But again, what does any of that lead to?
Yeah.
The Valakuts, there's no combo with these things tethered to Primeval Titan. It is just with the Dryad where you can start doing something. And I don't think there's enough resources here for him to be able to do something like Teleria West. And even if he could Teleria West for Summoner's Pact, he's shut off from spells this turn because of the Knight Captain. So he kind of just jammed up on this turn. He can get some lands and he can attack, but I don't think he can really do anything to manage Marshall's battlefield or ability to combo out next turn.
Well, Ayers is going to give this a long thought. While he works on that, we do want to let you know some updates here. In our match, Micah Greenbaum has won game number 1 over Russell Lee. Demir Inverter up a game over Mono Black Aggro. And then Bobby Fortanely has won game number 1 over Jake Mondello. Mono Red Aggro up a game over Teamer Reclamation. So, with those results out of the way, let you know that Vesuva and Teleria West are the selections here for Daryl. Vesuva is copying one of those bounce lands in Simic Growth Chamber to allow Daryl to return his Teleria West to hand for a future turn. That is a Kitchen Finks, and that is a combo, perhaps, in combination with Helion. So
he can basically scry, stack his deck, gain infinite life.
That's exactly what Chris is explaining right now. Yep, and so he says, I can basically stack my deck. I'd like to stack my deck if you don't mind. Now, oddly, this is not, and I can't believe I'm going to say this is not game over. And the reason for that is because the Valakut deck, the Amulet Titan deck, assuming that Daryl is able to find Dryad of the Elysian Grove, they have the ability to basically kill all of your creatures. So so that Chris Marshall can never attack. And actually, Darryl will end up doing is decking him.
Sure.
Depending on how many cards each player has. But this is something that actually came up last weekend for Dominic Harvey. So here comes the attack. Now, again, we will confirm the life totals here because I believe that we should have Chris Marshall at infinite life at this point, but we will confirm that in just a moment as Heliod did come across. Here is a Summoner's Pact.
I did not. I was a little surprised by that play. I was a little surprised by that play last turn, or this upkeep from Marshall, from Ayers' upkeep there. You know that he got Teleria West. I'm a little surprised that Marshall didn't go ahead and just use the captain to shut out spells. I guess he was hoping to do it in response to a Teleria West transmute.
Perhaps.
But Ayers just drew a Summoner's Pact, so now he gets to get Dryad of the Elysian Grove out and maybe can make some inroads onto Marshall's battlefield.
So Darryl is counting. So let's see here. This is a Ranger Captain of Eos sacrifice in response to something.
Teleria West.
Okay, sure. I'm curious where the Dryad of the Elysian Grove went then.
It's in Ayers' hand right now.
Okay. Okay, so Darryl just hasn't cast it yet. Okay, gotcha. It looked like he had deployed it, but apparently he has not. So now there is Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Giver of Runes is going to protect Viscera Seer. Here's a Gruul Turf. And Darryl's going to start by taking care of the mana creatures. Now he'll play this land again because of Azusa. Now he'll do this again. And this is exactly what I'm talking about here, where this is kind of the problem right now for Marshall, is does he have a way to work through the fact that Ayers can Valakut away so many different things. Now Marshall looks like there's a combination here with Heliod and Kitchen Finks, where he can't actually get that aspect of things off of the battlefield. Kitchen Finks will die, come back, gain life. Heliod will put the +1/+1 counter in there. So I guess there's some unique timing that Darryl will have to do on the perhaps the following turn. But for now, you see the game plan here for Ayers, which is to mow down every single thing that Marshall has.
Yeah, and with the Tribe Scout, he has a lot of ability to break things up at instant speed, so even Collected Company is not necessarily an out here for Marshall.
Yep, so now Tribe Scout's going to put Gruul Turf onto the battlefield again. Gruul Turf has a trigger where when there's the battlefield, you return a land back to your hand, so Gruul Turf's going to return itself. So there goes the Viscera Seer. Now, what's kind of interesting about this situation is that Darryl doesn't have the ability to deal infinite damage. We know that.
Yep.
But he does have the ability to control exactly what's going on Marshall's side of the battlefield, so he'll play another copy of Secure Tribe Scout. He'll pass the turn. Here's a Collected Company. Whatever Marshall gets here is almost certainly going to get blown up. So we'll take a look at the top 6 cards. Now, in this particular game, I don't think, and we don't know the exact number of cards in each player's deck, so we're not going to speculate on that, and Marshall is not going to take anything with Collected Company, which I think is surprisingly smart. I don't think we are going to see Ayers ever attack or deploy another Primeval Titan.
No, I think that if you assume that Marshall has, he's Collected Company and found 2 creatures that way, he's played some, searched his deck and sort of analogs to drawing cards, but he's going to get decked first here.
Mm-hmm. There's a Ghost Quarter, Horizon Canopy, and now we're going to see these players kind of do this, I think, which is a lot of draw, go, that type of thing. Again, we're not going to speculate on who has more cards in their deck at this stage of things. Don't want these players to reveal that information. I do know that both players did count their decks briefly. And here's a Kitchen Fink, so Marshall's just going to obviously gain a ton more life. And now Heliod is on. So let's take a look at this. Step 1, Ayers is going to, looks like he's going to try to shoot Kitchen Finks twice, which means that the Heliod is going to be a creature, but then both of those Kitchen Finks are in the graveyard, so then it stops being a creature, removes it from combat, and then the Kitchen Finks both come back without. They have their counter from persist, and Heliod removes it.
Right.
So that means that he has the ability to remove Heliod from combat every time it attacks. Okay. What kind of game are we in here?
I mean, if Marshall's down on deck size here, the burden's on him to do something to break out of this.
Yeah.
If we're just sitting here like this, whatever.
And these two are obviously continuing to play, and neither one is appearing to make a move. So now I'm going to go take a look through deck list here and see, does Ayers have a way to stop himself from decking? Ayers does have, let's see, an Engineered Explosives, which I don't think plays a role in things. We know his creatures, Titan, Tribe Scout, Dryad Elysian Grove, and Azusa Lost But Seeking. He's got his Pact Negation in hand. Summoner's Pact isn't something he needs to cast.
And both players are counting right now. I think the writing's on the wall here that someone is going to get decked. Ayers cannot win via damage, and Marshall might be locked out of taking any more game actions.
Our Pioneer match is all tied up now as Russell Lee wins game number 2 over Micah Greenbaum. Mono Black Aggro is tied up against Demir Inverter, while these two players are going to figure out exactly what the heck is going to happen here. Yeah, but taking a look through the main decks, which you should be able to do as well, just like we are, via Cardboard Live. There's a copy of Spike Feeder in combination with Heliod. That's Infinite Life, but Chris Marshall has already solved that puzzle this game. Marshall is a deck with 0 removal, multiple copies of Dryad Elysian Grove and Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield now. There's Noble Hierarch. That's going to die, obviously. Primeval Titan, deploy but not search.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fails to find.
That's correct. Just build up a massive battlefield, but deploy and not search. And Daryl's just going to keep doing this. Just play whatever he draws. Snow-covered forest. Can't cast once upon. I mean, I suppose you can cast once upon a time, but fail to find.
Right. Prefer not to.
Yeah. All right, so does that change anything? So EE, you don't want to set on 3 because you'll blow up your Dryads and your Azusa. So you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do it on 1 either because the Tribe Scout being available it gives you a lot of agency for breaking up Marshall's turn.
Okay.
But does 2 even amount to anything?
I don't think so. Again, we're looking at a game here where Chris Marshall, again, has no main deck removal at all. No path to exile. As far as his lands are concerned, no meaningful way to blow up Valakuts. No, he doesn't have anything like Field of Ruin or Ghost Quarter in his deck. It's a very straightforward Abzan mana base. So, well, we've got Bobby Fortanely winning the standard match 2-0. So Mono Red Aggro does win against Teamer Reclamation. There's a Noble Hierarch. Marshall's expecting that Hierarch to be dead by now. Ayers didn't put in a land via the Tribe Scout.
Yeah, there's really no reason from Ayers' perspective, acting on your own turn with the Tribe Scout exposes you to some risk. So just untap and at sorcery speed, make a land drop and kill it.
Yep, there's Field of the Dead.
Okay.
A 2/2 is nice, but you know, not really what this particular game is about. I mean, there is the ability to generate, obviously, a boatload of 2/2s, but
infinite is still infinite.
Yep. And I guess what Ayers is doing right now is he's adding 6 zombies every time, so he has a Field of the Dead, and he has the ability to play so many lands that he's just shortcutting there. So there's another Kitchen Finks.
Infinite +2.
Yep. Heliod a little bigger. A little bigger Heliod. I guess one of these players is waiting for one of them to make a mistake, perhaps.
Well, keep in mind that Ayers is doing all this with passive negation.
Yes.
So even if he slips up, hard to imagine Marshall getting 2 stabs at it. Maybe 1. 2 is going to be tough.
There's just nothing for Marshall to stab at is the problem. Taking a look at the deck list here. The Walking Ballista's in the graveyard. Okay. Okay, so let's take Ayers. Here's where the mistake can happen, which is why I think Chris is continuing to play. He has an Eternal Witness in his deck. And the Eternal Witness can get back the Walking Ballista. And then the thought process here is that you get back your Walking Ballista and you try to combo off with that and Heliod. Now, I'm not sure how well that's going to work for Chris Marshall.
Yeah, the combination of Pact of Negation and Ayers playing a main deck Bajuka Bog is going to make that really hard to pull off.
Yeah, the Bajuka Bog is the part that I'm glad that you mentioned because Ayers, I don't think, is ever going to... Well, he did play it, but he can always pick it up with Secure Tribe Scout or any of those bounce lands, and so he just picks it up. There you go. So he's always going to hold it so that he can play it at instant speed via the Secure Tribe Scout to nuke the graveyard. And he's already nuked the graveyard once. So that means that the Walking Ballista is gone. So that's no longer an option. So now I don't actually know, unless Chris Marshall has less cards, unless Chris Marshall has more cards in his deck than Daryl Ayers, I don't actually know how Chris Marshall wins this game. It comes down to decking. Because Ayers is not going to play a spell, and you saw Marshall with his Collect a Company earlier. He would not collect a company and put anything onto the battlefield because the number of cards do matter. So...
Not even bothering to make tokens with Field of the Dead.
Nope. This is like one of those games where you're almost timed out on Magic Online.
Yeah.
And you just keep pressing F6 and you hope your opponent doesn't start doing it too. Yep, bird, cool. Kill it. Your turn. You know, sometimes Magic isn't always about attacking and blocking. Sometimes it gets a little strange out here.
So you had the read on this, like, instantly. This is the way it was going to go.
Oh, yeah.
How many times have you seen this?
Well, Dom Harvey wrote about it in his article this week for Star City that this was a situation that happened. So basically, like, this is just kind of how the games go in certain instances where the Heliod Company deck does have... I think this is a good-ish matchup for Heliod Company because Ayers deck doesn't have a lot of interaction, but you can get yourself into situations like this where the Heliod Company deck doesn't have any removal spells or any meaningful way to interact with the Amulet Titan once it has its shop set up. So there's nothing Heliod Company in Game 1 can do to break this up. They don't have anything like a Blood Moon or any nonsense to stop this. So I think a lot of the time Heliod Company is going to be able to gain infinite life but not able to actually win the game. And that's what I think we just saw here. Now, we're going to get confirmation on who won that game, which I think is Daryl. Yeah, it's Daryl.
Yeah.
He built his shop up. There's nothing that they could do, and that's that. So we're going to turn our attention to our Pioneer match now because I think we got enough Amulet Titan versus Heliod, at least for that game. So Micah Greenbaum and Russell Lee will be given the green light, and we head this way. Leyline of the Void is where Russell will start, and we head back over to Micah. Now, Leyline is important here because Micah's deck does use the graveyard, obviously.
Dig Through Time's a big one.
Absolutely. But also, when you play Inverter, you're shuffling your graveyard back into as your deck. So now that means that you have to do the 1-2 punch of Inverter plus either Jace or Inverter plus Thassa's Oracle at the same time as opposed to breaking it up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the key component of Leyline of the Void here.
Yeah, there's a lot of times this deck's getting into spots where it's like, okay, well, I'll play Demir, I'll play an Inverter, 4 cards go back, I have another Inverter, and I can just sort of win with beatdown or put a lot of pressure on my opponent to just have a ton of removal to be able to play back. And now that's kind of off the table.
So here's Thought Eraser. Castle Lockvein, Mutavault, Fatal Push, Rankle, Spawn of Mayhem, and Scrap Heap Scrounger are the choices.
That is a great-looking hand. I mean, this is that mono black hand right there. That can play a short game. That can play a long game. Good curve of persistent threats. and engines of card advantage and sustainability with Castle Lochlein and Mutavault.
It looks like Wrinkle's going to head to the graveyard. Micah will surveil. That top card's headed to exile, and it's a copy of Thought Eraser. So we're going to head back over to Russell Lee now. He'll play a Mutavault. He'll get a little scrappy-dappy-doo with a Scrap Heap Scrounger, and we are heading back over to Micah Greenbaum, who, remember, does not have access to his graveyard, and he just drew another copy of Inverter of Truths. This is a Thoughtseize. The draw step there for Russell Lee was a copy of a Murderous Rider. Spawn of Mayhem's going to bite the dust. Now, I'm not quite sure if Micah has a third land, and he does not, so we're going to head back over and watch Mutavault get activated, and here's an attack for 5. And we are going to go back over to Micah Greenbaum, who needs to find some lands. He found a copy of Omen of the Sea. That could certainly help him get started, so there is the Omen. Scry 2 and draw a card. This new common from Theros Beyond Death has yielded Micah a land in an island, and he'll pass the turn back. We go back over to Russell Lee. We saw him fire at Mutavault last turn. He'll do it again. Coming here for 5 more. Micah's going to fall down to 8.
You can talk about the incentives to play all sorts of different styles of decks, and Mono Black has a bunch of individual cards that are good, but they just have the best lands in the format.
Yes, they do.
It's not close.
Castle, Mutavault, great cards.
Busted.
Yep.
Absolutely busted.
Here's an opt. Top card becomes the bottom one. Now, that is a Drowned Catacomb. I'm going to pass that turn back. Looks like it might be time to cast a removal spell here for Micah. He's going to start Will Russell by firing up Mutavault. Here come the beatdowns. You don't love playing a cast down on Scrap Heap Scrounger here.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yep. Or on Mutavault, but you got to kill something because you don't want to fall down to 3.
Mutavault's a win.
Well, Mutavault's a problem because it's an annoying card. So Scrap Heap Scrounger's going to die. Micah's going to fall down to 5. Russell will just pass the turn back, so we head back over to Micah now. He drew a copy of Thassa's Oracle.
But again, to your point, can't do it all in one turn.
Not all in one turn.
That graveyard should be exiled.
So this is interesting here because I think we go towards Jace. Yep. Now, you're going to mill 2. Now, keep in mind, his graveyard is entirely exiled, so does not have access to that. But oddly enough, next turn, if he inverters, and then Jace's, the game is over.
Well, we know that Russell has a copy of Murderous Rider in hand.
Very true.
So I would be surprised if it got to that stage.
It certainly should not get to that stage, I would say.
Ayers looks like he is communicating here, and I wonder if there's some question about what is going on with the ley line.
Well, I don't think there's any confusion to be had this game with
Right,
regards to that.
it's not a trigger that you can miss. It's just the text on the card.
All right, so we're going to head back over to Russell. We're going to get some more information on exactly what's happening here. I guess they're wondering, has Micah played a land yet this turn?
I mean, last turn, didn't he? No, that was he played Oracle land, and then the next turn he played just the removal spell.
I think that might be the question here is, did Micah Greenbaum play a land last turn? And I think the answer actually is yes. Because he very clearly drew a swamp off of his Jace activation, and he's just not sure if he played a land or not.
Yeah.
I think that's the question, because the idea here is to play Inverter plus Thassa's Oracle in the same turn to win the game.
Yeah, needs land number 5 and then land number 6 off the top to be able to do this.
Yep.
So it's a big one.
And I think Micah is pointing up at the camera wondering if we know.
Can we just rewind the tape here?
Unfortunately for him, I'm just not positive if he did or didn't. There was the Omen of the Sea turn where he found a land.
That was land number 3.
Yep. And then the following turn,
I think he just missed and played a removal spell, right?
I believe on the following turn he played a land. I believe he played a land and then cast down a creature. It's a very good question. We're keeping track of so much when we're here in the booth. And oddly enough, the players aren't sure, and we aren't positive either. So they're going to see if they can retrace some footsteps here and find out. And it's obviously a very, very, very important piece to this game. And it looks like they agree that he had not played a land yet. So he will deploy a land and pass the turn back. There's Murderous Rider. It's going to take care of the Jace. Here's the attack.
So he's drawn to it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to draw a land to win the game. And if he draws a land, he can play Inverter plus Oracle in the same turn. And I don't think he drew it.
I mean,
he drew a copy of Fatal Push, so he's still alive.
yeah, it's a redraw.
Yeah. There's Castle Lockman, going to try to attack for the win. Pushes the top deck. Goodbye, Scrap Heap Scrounger. This game continues to play on.
Land number 5 there, really important for Russell because this allows him to play the
Murderous Rider and the Scrounger.
I was going to say leave 3 up for the other Murderous Rider in his hand.
Well, what does that do?
Oh, it doesn't actually break up anything,
No,
right? It all just happens. That's right.
Well, Scry 2 to the bottom. He needs to draw land number 6.
Thing is, most of his draw steps are a redraw. Is that the one of the Fetid Pools or Choke Estuaries? Must be.
It might be one of the stinkers.
It must be.
Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
No. Fetid Pools. No.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh, no.
I know that.
He drew land 6, and there's a battlefield tapped.
Emergency unban Underground River.
Yeah. Oh, no. Deck coughed up a stink bomb.
One gets Mutavault and Castle Lockland, the other gets Choked Estuary and Fetid Pools.
What a beating.
Team Mutavault
Yep.
wins the game and match.
It looks like Team Mutavault's going to win the game and match. Here's Opt. That's not what the doctor ordered. Top card becomes the bottom. Well, he drew land 6.
Yeah.
Can't say he didn't. Choked Estuary now the draw. Pass the turn back.
Oh,
it's going to be a lethal attack.
Oh, man.
Russell Lee, Bobby Fortanely, and Daryl Ayers are going to win this game and match here over Chris Marshall, Michael Greenbaum, and Jake Mondello. Amulet Titan, Mono Black Aggro, and Mono Red Aggro stay